Been one of those weeks, hasn't it? Like, I can't tell if it's because of the weather. Things are cooling off and the skies are getting grayer, or if it's situational with so many wild, weird things happening in our world. We're faced with the insanity of humanity on a second by second basis. And we just feel overwhelmed and get down. You ever feel that way? Kavanaugh nomination, and it's not just the confirmation to the Supreme Court, but it's the arguing that's going on around it. And I don't mind even passionate debate, but the temperature of the way we deal with each other, just been, it's hard to watch. It's hard to listen to sometimes. Sometimes you need a therapy animal. This is little Henry. He's my therapy dog. He's had kind of a tough week. He's been struggling with a cough that we think is due to a collapsing trachea, which is a common problem in small dogs. And so we vaped him this morning, which is a surreal experience. It's something that the vet helped us set up, where you put a storage container together and you stick a nebulizer into a little hole in the container and you put the dog in the container, which is interesting when you have a dog small enough to go into a storage crate. And they can see out, it's clear. And then you pipe in this nebulized steroid that they breathe, and it's supposed to reduce the inflammation inside the trachea and help them breathe a little better. And so we did that this morning, and it's just wild because it just looks like they're in there, with a big bong. They're just in there, just like, hey, man, this stuff is really good shit. Who's hungry? I'm starving, man. Yeah, I just picture that when he's in there. He's not a big fan of being in the vape hole, not a fan of the smoke hole, but when he comes out and he calms down, he just turns to butter. I call him old boneless. He just turns to butter in your hands. Yeah. Never thought I'd have a small dog, but I'll tell you, there's something to be said for a dog that doesn't require a 50-pound bag of dog food and doesn't leave piles in your yard that make the neighbors ask if you have cattle, and that don't really shed. They have their problems, trust me, and they're not really meant to be bred this small. We've been educated on this sense. People breed dogs really small for cuteness reasons. Oh, we want a small dog, but it's not good for the dog. You get to a point where the body's just not, there's not enough room for it to do what it needs to do. You find that their teeth, there's not enough room for the teeth in the mouth, and the trachea is a problem, and their joints. Rat dog has a floating patella, so the kneecap slips off because the bone's too small, it's too shallow. And so, we have our share of challenges, but he's got a good life. So anyway, Henry says hi, sort of. He kind of mumbles hi this morning. And we thought, well, since it's kind of a sad day, it just feels kind of sad today. We thought maybe we'd just spend the first part of the day with you. You gonna fall asleep, pal? I think I'm gonna put him in his bed. Maybe I'll just sit with him for a few. In the chat room, do I have a video for the argument nothing from nothing for the apologist? No, not specifically. Others have covered you mean something from nothing? How did something come from nothing? I know Krauss, despite the controversy around him, has a book about something from nothing called A Universe from Nothing. He defines nothing differently, I think, than many of the apologists, and some of us do. In that context, he's talking about, the properties of the universe where I think it's some kind of a matter, antimatter, dark matter, whatever, appears and disappears. And, but what I find most interesting is how did something come from nothing? It's not a theistic argument. It's a deistic argument. It's a somebody, somewhere, something, some power, not even an intelligence. Like something came from the origin of the universe began in a specific way. And to get from there to Yahweh, Jesus, Allah, Krishna, that's a stretch. All right, pal. You ready to go back to sleep? Are you tired of being used as a prop, a cuteness prop for everybody? Oh, yeah. Can you hear him wheezing? You okay? Oh. The problem is that now he's in his little melting spot. Yeah. Okay. I need him to live forever. I need him to live forever. You know, the idea that, who was it the other day said something like, well, something started the universe into motion, as if that's an argument. You know, Captain Obvious to the rescue. Something happened. And yeah, I think it would be interesting if you're into the something from nothing discussion with an apologist. And again, you might be wasting your time. If it's just you and this person, you may want to move on to other things if no one else is watching. But find out what their specific religious belief is. So that's the most interesting part for me. How did something come from nothing? Isn't really the question. The question is how do you get from the notion that something happened to a specific God with a proper name? I think that's the most interesting. Let's see. What else was happening in my world? It looks, it doesn't look. It's confirmed. I'm going to the Netherlands. There's the Dutch Skeptics Congress happening November 3rd, right? So they contacted me and they said, would you like to come speak? And I'm like, oh my God, I'd be honored. I've, in my life, in 50 years, never been to that part of the world. I've always wanted to go. And so I grabbed Natalie and we're going to go. We're going to land at London Heathrow. We're going to do a few touristy things in London. We'll probably go see Buckingham Palace and the changing of the guards. And, I don't know. I'm open to recommendations. And then we're going to jet down, or actually take the train down to Paris. We're just going to spend a day in Paris. And then we're going to end up in Bruges and Amsterdam, or actually Amersfoort. I hope I'm saying it correctly, which is where the Congress is happening. And then there's another event happening on Sunday. And that's just south of Amsterdam. I don't know, I'm overwhelmed by it all. I'm just now booking hotels. I'm nervous a little bit about the language barrier because as we are a nation, one of the few nations that's, where we're not at least bilingual. It's interesting because I wish so much that I had been part of a legitimate, dual language study growing up, not just English, where I go around the world and expect everybody else to speak English. But I had really been able to learn, Spanish and some of these other languages. And so I'm nervous about Paris. I have been told that if you're in Paris and you don't make an attempt to try the language when asking for help, that you may be treated with disdain and contempt. I don't know if this is true. This may be something they do. This is one person's subjective experience. But I've heard the French can be a little cold. Is that a misconception? Do I have that wrong? I don't want to misrepresent the culture, But I don't speak a lick of French. I don't remember any of the Spanish I took in high school. All I know is English, and it's redneck English. Hey, Paris, France, there's the Eiffel Tower. How y'all doing? Man, it's a pleasure to be here in Paris, right? Can you hear me doing that? I mean, they'll probably throw food at me. But, Natalie and I, under the shadow of the Eiffel Tower as the sun sets and the lights come up, And there'll be coffee and beignets, and there'll be someone playing French music on the corner, and we will kiss under the moonlight. That's the kind of thing we've been talking about, you know. And so we're excited. That's on all the details on that if you are wanting to be a part of it. The website, the Dutch Skeptics Congress website, is all in Dutch, of course. I ain't read a damn thing of it. I have to hit translate now so I can read the website. But SethAndrews.net and thethinkingatheist.com has the specifics on that event. And then when I come back, we land, and then I'm going right back to Florida for Clearwater and Orlando. You know what's interesting is I should have brought it up here. I just got a jury summons in the mail. You have been summoned for jury duty. Guess what week they want me to be a juror, or at least part of a potential jury or a jury pool? The week I'm going to be in London, Paris, and Amsterdam. Now, if I call them and I say, look, I can't be on a jury because I'm going to be out of the country, that seems like a legit excuse. I don't mind doing my civic duty. I don't mind being on, well, I've never been on a jury in my life, and I'll tell you the reason I haven't. I've been called to jury duty twice before, never chosen. Both of these times were when I was an FM broadcaster. And in my first marriage, at that time, my wife worked for an attorney. And so there's conflict of interest all over the place. Like you're a member of the media and your spouse works for an attorney. And, you know, this was back in the early 90s. And so, you know, I just never got selected. I had to go through the interview process, and they'd ask me what I did for a living, and they'd ask me about media bias and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, thanks so much for your time. Bye. And then you go down to this basement where you play pool and watch daytime television and just kill time all freaking day. You'd have to take time off work, you know. I was just never called. And I'm not sure how this is going to work. Oklahoma jury selection. Hi, what's your name? I'm Seth Andrews. What do you do for a living? I host thethinkingatheist.com. Thanks for your time. They will say, have a great day. And then Aiden has asked me to explain jury duty very quickly. In the American justice system, we have many of our trials you have a judge trial where the judge makes the ruling, and then you have jury trials where a jury and this is laughable, of your peers is selected from a pool of people. So essentially, they'll send letters out to a shit ton of people in a specific area, and they say, you need to be available for jury duty this week. And all these people go down to the courthouse, and they have a room just for potential jurors where they just hang out and wait to be called. And at random, they will bring in and call people in, and they'll bring them in to a courtroom, and the attorneys will then whittle this group down to 12, what they consider to be 12 qualified jurors, meaning 12 jurors who aren't going to have a conflict of interest because they've been the victim of a crime that's like the crime that the one that's in question, or they're not a Nazi. You know what I'm saying? There's not some other mitigating thing that would disqualify them from being an objective arbiter of justice in this case. So the idea is that the lawyers are trying to ask all these interview questions of a jury pool to excuse all the ones they don't like or think aren't going to do a good job or rule in their favor, and then they get down to 12. This is the best system we have. It ain't great. And then those 12 will listen to the court proceedings, and at the end, it is the 12 jurors, everyday citizens, who will render the judgment, guilty or not guilty. And so when you are a member of the media, or you are wired into the justice system in some sort of a career way, you can be deemed having a conflict of interest. You cannot be objective, therefore we don't want you on our jury. So for that person, it's kind of wasted time. And, I'm not opposed to the system per se. The problem is that here in the United States, we are a culture of people who know more about the Kardashians than they know about almost anything else. That's a challenge. An informed public, and we're all guilty to a degree of biases, but you can see how biases can play into a ruling. So if you have, if you're in the South and there's a black defendant and you have an all-white jury in the highly racially polarized South, look out. Did you see the American Justice series? It's actually quite good on the O.J. Simpson trial. And you see how a man who was obviously guilty, but who was a celebrity and who was popular and there were racial things going on, and he essentially was allowed at that point to skate for the murder of two people. And it was because the jury was biased in his favor. And yes, I think O.J. is absolutely guilty. You don't see, I don't think you can look at his situation and the evidence and come to any other conclusion, but somebody did. And he ended up going to prison on other charges. But he's a scary dude, just absolutely scary. So an imperfect system, but it's for the moment, it's the best we got. And so I've been asked, summoned, you must be here. And if you don't show up for jury duty, I think they can issue a bench warrant for your arrest. Is that true? Aiden, thank you for the donation, by the way. Said it's not just American culture. People do the same here in Bosnia, just not with the Kardashians. I think, there's a strategy to some of that. It's like in the Twitterverse, and please sound off in chat and tell me what you think. I think people see what I consider often the purposeful obfuscation of information. Right? It's a tactic to keep things so chaotic and so undefinable. The fog is everywhere. The noise is everywhere. Everything's clashing against everything else. To make an environment where the average everyday person who just wants to go to work and raise their family and live life try to stay out of trouble, they just check out. They're like, oh, yeah, who knows who's telling the truth? I stopped listening a long time ago. Well, that's a strategy. Right? If we can make people not pay attention, then we can get away with so much more. And so to create doubt, there's a great book and a film called The Merchants of Doubt, where, nothing really can be known or everything can be thrown, even hard evidence can be thrown into doubt. So people say, well, no one can really know anything about anything. And then you just surrender. We surrender reason. We surrender the honest pursuit of the truth. The Merchants of Doubt, I believe, was about the tobacco companies and how one of the strategies when it came to cancer-causing cigarettes was to just sow the seeds of doubt in the public and say, you never know. Is it the cigarettes? The science is vague. Get people to question themselves, get them to second guess themselves. Well, the scientists say this, but the tobacco scientists say that, and blah, blah, blah. And who knows what's true? I give up. Let's go talk about the Kardashians. And that's like bubble gum for the brain. You go there to decompress. You go there to not have to worry about real life. You go there to be, part of this sort of adult romper room. Climate change. Thank you, troubleshooter. What a great example. The earth is cyclical. No one really knows. Scientists, it's all political. And then we check out. Like, that's, for us, the end of the conversation. I used to do the same thing. I used to be like, the guy who founded the Weather Channel, he's a climate change skeptic. It's all political. It's just a bunch of liberals. I was a conservative at the time. It's all a bunch of liberals wanting to just control our lives. And then, of course, that's as far as I went. So I didn't know anything about the data itself. And I heard so much noise out there on Fox News, mostly at the time, that I just stopped looking. I'll go do something else. It's hard to want to stay engaged. It's hard to want to stay in the fight. And it's also hard to balance it, because now I also see the pendulum swinging the other way, where people, that's all they do is, they're posting 40 times a day about whatever passion cause they have, and they've lost the balance in their own life. I mean, there's so many problems, and we just blink out. God, it's just too messy for me. I don't want to deal with it. A1 says, why are right-leaning atheists hated by most mainstream atheism groups? Hitchens was fairly conservative on many issues. So why are people shocked when they meet atheists with similar political views? Hitchens, I know, supported the Iraq War against Saddam Hussein. But to call Hitchens a conservative? That's a stretch. Maybe libertarian on some issues, but he was also in many ways very left. The right of a woman to choose what happens to her own body, left. The rejection of sort of this evangelical, conservative God and country narrative, that's left. I don't think he was pro-NRA. I think he would have supported death with dignity. That's not a conservative issue. See, we did abortion. What else is there out there? I think, I don't know. I mean, you can't put him in a cookie cutter, and I think, honestly, you can't put a lot of people. I like the notion that we don't hate someone who is politically different than we are. But, probably even more than religion, politics speaks to our values. And the idea that someone, and Kavanaugh, who I must bring up again, provides a great example. Was it Hector Garcia? Breaking Bad ringtone. Sorry. Yeah, this is the part where they go, "Hi, this is your representative from Google." Google doesn't call people. Dear God, what was I talking about? Was it Hector Garcia or someone else who was saying, I would like to hear conservative women defend Kavanaugh and their decision to support Kavanaugh. And even when that vote is sort of against their own interests, which many people feel is the case because they think he's first of all been, in key ways, I think, dismissive. And also we think he's probably going to try to add regulation to Roe v. Wade, if not instigate some kind of repeal. I don't think repeal's in the cards. Probably more of a complication, a muddying of the waters. They're going to add more tests and hang on, let me ban somebody here. Bye. Been nice. If someone is, I know someone who's a devout Catholic and thinks Trump is the Messiah, right? Well, she is a conservative, but why? Like, is she a conservative because she's pro-business and because she is a capitalist and because she doesn't like big government and thinks it needs to be all about people and rugged individualism? And does she think abortion is murder because there's a soul created at conception and that people should be killed before murder, eye for an eye, which is kind of an Old Testament judgment, and blah, blah, blah? I mean, what informs that conservatism? Or is it just our towing of the line to the R behind Republican? And this sort of theocracy in motion approach to trying to make the entire United States a Christian privilege exercise. And, she's tough to watch. Now, I don't hate her at all. I just love her to death. She's a friend. I enjoy her company. I enjoy her on the tennis court. We'll go out and play tennis. Natalie and I, and we'll go out and play mixed doubles with her and somebody else and have a ball. But we don't talk much politics because we are, but I don't hate her. But I see what you're talking about in terms of, making someone who is a conservative the enemy. I got another nasty email when I made the correct assertion that it's intellectually dishonest to say that all people who voted for Donald Trump are themselves racist. All generalities are false. Right? Because there are some people who simply voted single issue. They voted only because he was pro-life, of course, pro-life, anti-abortion. And it's interesting because I'm reading or listening to on Audible Bob Woodward's book called Fear, which talks about how Trump used to be pro-choice until it became politically necessary for him to be anti-abortion. And so before he ran for president, he just flipped that switch. I mean, tell me those are values. Tell me that comes from personal conviction. Oh, yeah, I'm pro-choice. Yeah, pro-choice. Right. Oh, you're going to have to become anti-abortion if you're going to be a Republican presidential candidate. Oh, shit, no problem. I guess I'll be anti-abortion. I mean, this is not born of personal conviction. And so anyway, there are people who, they saw the businessman narrative, and they believed the horseshit that was written in The Art of the Deal decades ago, and they decide, well, he's a businessman. We need a businessman in there who can balance the budget. There are people who respond merely to an authoritarian narrative, which I think is compelling. Some people like charismatic, strong people, even if they're clowns. And so they're like, oh, well, he's going to go. He's an outsider. There are a number of reasons people latched on. And then there's a ton of people, I think, who have real bigotry inside of them. And there's a part of Trump that they respond to. But to say that all people who went to the voting booth in 2016 to vote for Donald Trump are all racists, not only are we cheating ourselves intellectually, we're cheating the arguments that need to be had and the discussions that had to be had. I also think that we're pushing people further into their sort of bunkers, their intellectual bunkers, because we are now looking like a little bit like the loony left that they say we are, because we're not operating with intellectual honesty. And they're just going to double down, and they're going to doubly vote for Trump next time. So we're just going to show you. It's just a vicious cycle. It's just a vicious cycle. Yes, I do think that we have a responsibility in the United States to manage our books. Yes, I do think that our government has rampant waste. Rampant waste. And outmoded systems, and people not motivated to make change. And I think that there are some aspects of business, some, not all, some aspects of business that we could learn from in terms of government. I mean, to live in an operation where it does matter if you have enough money to pay the bill, if you are accountable and you don't just run a deficit. You have to make the numbers match, and you can't just say, oh, we'll pass it off to the kids. How many trillions of dollars of the national debt do we have? And there's a competitiveness that I think motivates positive change. Are we using these old antiquated governmental systems because the government essentially is its own thing and there is no real competition? I mean, there's a lot that we could fix. There's a lot we could streamline. When I was a conservative Christian, I remember thinking that, it's all about the individual. I was thinking tribally. And as, an atheist and one who has progressive tendencies, I tend to think more global. Am I a globalist? I might be. Like, I enjoy being an American citizen, and I'm thankful for the freedoms and opportunities I have. But, I'm not just a citizen of this place with these subjectively drawn borders drawn by human beings. I'm part of the human condition. Like we are all the human race, and it's liberating to feel that way. I'm just babbling. Anyway. September says what's aggravating, forgive me, is folks assuming if you're against Trump, you're pro-Hillary. What's my prediction for 2020? I don't have the first damn clue. A lot of people just respond to all criticism on Trump met with, I don't give a damn, while at the same time he's attacking the media and is highly intellectual. There are a few things that I have to bring up. One is that it's very Orwellian, his attempt to marginalize and perhaps even potentially prosecute those who are reporting negative stories against him. I think anyone who could stand in front of the 2016 Republican National Convention and declare, I alone can fix it, and people would applaud him, Orwellian. It's very cult-like, very cult-like. Like, of all the people in the world, the attorneys, the scientists, the educators, the professors, the thinkers, the problem solvers, the Nobel laureates, the businessmen, the businesswomen, everybody in the world, 7 billion people, almost 400 million American citizens, and only you singly can fix it. It's such a hyperbolic claim, I would think. It would be immediately self-disqualifying, and yet millions of people just stood up and cheered. It's a weird time to be in this country. Harrison said, I've been a huge fan. As a kid, I find it hard to speak about atheism because people don't take me seriously. Well, I can't speak to your specific situation, Harrison. I don't know if I'd speak about, like, atheism. I mean, you can, like, atheism is a description of what you are if you reject the idea of gods. But beyond that, what are you? Like, I don't believe in a God. I mean, that's a statement. You can get that out in about 3 seconds. Beyond that, what are you about? Are you a rationalist? I mean, because conversations can start there, and I think they start with questions. You're around people who, if they have a God belief in some way, you begin the conversation and say, how do you get to the answer on this? How do you determine what's true? How do you know for sure? How does your faith claim stack up against the faith claims of other religious people who are just as convinced as you are? Are you a humanist? What are you doing to make the world a better place? This is a question you might pose to someone else, or you might make it about yourself to keep them off the defensive and say, I think that human beings need to be here for each other because I am a humanist. And you can start down that path. I've been trying to use more proactive language. I know I host The Thinking Atheist, but it's a double-edged sword because when people who are sort of coming out of their religious cocoon Google atheism, The Thinking Atheist website, which is newly redesigned, by the way, and still I'm tweaking, so hang in there. It pops up, and then they become involved. I mean, it's easy for them to find, and I really like that. But it's about what I don't believe in. And I'm about so much more than that. I'm about human beings. I love being part of the human condition, breathing the air at this moment, to not look up at the sky and wait for the manna to fall from heaven, but to try to help people and to try to make life better, not just for me, but for those around me, for maybe people I've never even met before. You get a little bit of a dopamine kick whenever you're helping other people. And there are evolutionary reasons for that. So, rather than lead with the negative, you can use the Socratic method to try to determine how they got where they are, and don't be a dick about it. Just, how did you get there? How did you come to your belief? Oh, your parents believed, and they sent you to this church. How'd they believe? How'd they get there? How do you demonstrate that to people? What if another religion's claim is just like yours, but the gods are different? What do you have to say about this? What do you think about this? And then when talking about yourself, instead of leading with, well, I don't believe in God, which you can say, I think it's good to be positive. I think that, and here's one that I like to use on people when they're religious and they're especially making the moral argument. Well, I'm convinced that all source of morality comes from Jesus. Some of them actually speak this way. And I hit them where they least expect it. I say, the difference here is that I think that if all claims for all gods, all evidence for all gods, everything disappeared tomorrow, and we know for certain there is no God, there is no theistic God, there's no God of any kind. If that was determined absolutely 1,000%, I believe your life still has value and that you are still a good person and that your life still should be lived with the utmost joy and connection and self-generated purpose. I think you're not good because of your God. What I see is someone who's good regardless. I think your good is there already. And it takes them off the defensive a little bit. I mean, they're going to defend their God, but, instead of saying, what a dumbass. You think you're adopted by a wizard in space who gave you a divine mission with eternal reward, and he's going to give you a mansion with crowns and jewels in your crown, and you're going to sing praises forever and be reunited with all the people you lost and the family dog, and there'll be no pain, and it's just a happy Xanadu out there in the ether somewhere. You think that you think the universe revolves around you, and that hundreds of millions of galaxies were created so that you could draw breath at this moment. Are you shitting me? Instead of doing that, you just look at him and say, the truth is that I think we see goodness differently. And that I'm convinced that well beyond the God question, you have value. And I see and appreciate the value in you. And I think, God, no God, whatever. I think you are who you are, and I'm thankful for that. And it's amazing to see the responses because they're not really sure what to do with that, especially if they're used to arguing. AR said, did you see that Matt Dillahunty is going to debate Dinesh D'Souza? Fuck, I'm having trouble speaking. Hang on. Let me try that again. Hey, Seth, did you see Matt Dillahunty will debate Dinesh D'Souza in a more political than religious? Yeah, I mean, Dinesh drives me crazy. I like the idea of engaging him because I like the idea that, where there's light, there's heat. And, Dinesh has a following, and he's produced some really shitty movies, this sort of God in America thing that he's got going on. And I personally just think he's a snake. But I love the idea of him sitting on stage with Matt. And I told Matt himself, I'm like, Jesus, I might have to just buy a ticket. I may buy a ticket and go up to New York and watch this. Not because I'm a fan of Dinesh, but because I think he is all of these sort of paper tigers that he's throwing out. All of these things that are supposed proofs. I tried reading one of his books once. God, what was it called? Hang on. No. I got to find that. It's going to drive me crazy. Part of the reason I have enough time to have this live stream is because I just finished recording a 10-hour audiobook for Hector Garcia. So I'm D'Souza, and it's kind of nice. Kind of nice to have that kind of time. What was it called? What's So Great About Christianity? It came out in 2007. Now, this was during my journey. And I couldn't finish it. I just couldn't finish it. I was like, this is drivel. And so I love the idea. put Dinesh up there as God's man, God's champion up there, and let Matt sit right next to him. And I have a feeling, I mean, Matt's not perfect, but he's good at this, and he's done a shit ton of it. And I think he'll probably just take Dinesh apart ideologically, piece by piece, and expose how problematic his positions are. And so, yeah, I wish I was there. Hope they put it online. Don't lock it behind a paywall or eventually release it out. Akine says, buy glasses without reflection. Yeah, I'm sorry. They are reflective resistant. Forgive me, I look really tired today. But if I go over and I read over here, or think if I hit a certain angle, it becomes kind of tough. So please forgive me. First world problems. Pseudo Meme says, isn't it sort of surreal knowing people have tattoos of your stage name? The Thinking Atheist? Oh, I've seen like the thinking person with the light bulb. Yeah, many people will actually send me emails before they get the tattoo and ask if it's okay. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. It's a trademark logo, but I'm like, go ahead. No skin off my teeth, and then they'll show me the tattoo when it's done. And I think to myself, that's permanent. I mean, that's permanent. Like, do you really want to make that kind of commitment? Put that on your wrist or on your shoulder? Yeah, are you sure? I mean, that's the conversation I have. Are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, it's a bit surreal. My favorite creationist argument to debunk. Oh, God. It's, I don't know, they go back and forth. Hitler's a big one. This discovery of Noah's Ark in the Middle East that happens every few years, that's a big one. That's always fun. Oh, God, what are some of the other ones? The human eye is too perfect to have evolved. It has to have been designed. That's, the evolution of the eye that's a fun one to tackle. Yeah, a lot of the design arguments. I had this one the other day. How can you say that there isn't a divine? God, what word did they use? I don't know. How can you say that we aren't all perfectly designed? And I'm like, well, it'd be nice if that design didn't include a sun that gives us cancer. Birth defects of children and animals that survive by eating other animals alive and the pain of death. Parasites that live in the eye and then bore their way out. And, things like the 14-foot laryngeal nerve in the giraffe that only has to be 12 inches, but it goes all the way down and it wraps around. Evolution explains that. Creation, design does not. Blind creatures that have eyes, flightless creatures that have wings, heavy bones, and flying animals. That's always good. Natural disasters. Yeah, thanks God for that design. I live in Tornado Alley. We have twisters here every freaking year. So many that many of us put storm shelters in our in our homes so that we won't get our asses kicked because these prayers for divine protection are not working out, especially if you live in Moore, Oklahoma. There's a bunch of good ones out there. Let's see. Let me scroll back up. I think there was another one. Seth, will I ever write a book about atheism? Like what? Like what it is? About the movement? I wrote a book about how I came to atheism. It's called Deconverted. If you want a book about atheism, there's some great ones out there. But, start with Dale McGowan's Atheism for Dummies. It's actually a really clever look. I'm scanning the chat very quickly. Planting seeds through your PP hole. Good design. Yeah. What was another one that Abby Hafer said where the tube that we ingest food is right next to the tube that we breathe through, so people choke to death worldwide all the time. Yeah, it's great design. Oh God, there's so many others. Abby Hafer has a great book. It's called The Not So Intelligent Designer. And if you're interested in those examples of really, really, really poor design, you should pick that sucker up. It's on Amazon, and you can listen to the broadcast we did. I think I called it The Not So Intelligent Designer with Dr. Abby Hafer. We did the podcast a few months ago, so it's easily found in archive. I did a speech on this called The God of Cancer. Thank you, David, for the reminder. It's a speech that I had done, I think, in Canada and Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. 3 years ago, The God of Cancer. You can find it on the YouTube page. Let's see. Bible story videos, perhaps. I'm going to have to probably outsource a lot of that. I'm quite simply having enough trouble finding the hours in the day, and those suckers take a long time. Okay, well, anything else on your mind that pops up, we can hit it. If not, I guess we can call it. How long have we been broadcasting anyway? 45 minutes or so. You still enjoying the live stream? It's kind of an interesting format. It's always fun to be able to connect and sure be sitting in the studio alone on a Monday morning with so much other stuff. It's hard. It's hard to not have interaction with people. I like being able to do what I do full time, but being by yourself 8 hours at a time is kind of sucks. So let's see. Joshua, thank you for the kind words and for the donation. Have you ever heard any Christians invoke the legend of Dr. Faustus? I have not. Thoughts on MythCon 5? Nope. You should see the Masked Arab. I've actually been in contact with the Masked Arab to be a guest on my show. I'm hoping we'll make it happen early 2019. Whoa. Patricia, enjoying your posts. I've been posting a lot about Halloween. I hope that's okay. We finished the last of the designs last night. So here's how you do it. I decided in my front yard I wanted a portal to hell. So what you do is, normally what you're supposed to do is you actually cut into your yard like a square that's about yay deep, okay? And then you take a pallet like they put retail merchandise on or supplies on at retail stores. Take a pallet and you drop it in the hole. And under that pallet you have like a red light. And then if you have like dry ice or a consumer fog machine, I have a fog machine. And you can put hands coming up out of the pallet slats. So when it doesn't look great during the day. I didn't want to dig a hole in my yard. I just didn't want to do that. And so what I did is I bought some topsoil and I just sort of built up the yard on the side. So I sort of built up about 8 inches and then I set the pallet on top and kind of dug it in and spray painted around the sides and packed it all in. So it looks almost like it's an entrance that leads into the earth that rises up. It extrudes up out of the ground just a little bit. And then I have a red LED floodlight in there near the front. So it actually you can't see the light itself, but you see this red hue that's hitting all the slats. It's a great little effect. And then I've got a fog machine and I've got a tube that funnels the fog into this underneath kind of chamber. And then with these skull hands coming up, you actually see the smoke coming up. So it very much, during the day, it looks terrible, I must say. It looks terrible because I didn't I'm just not going to dig a hole in my front yard. It's just not going to come back right. It's going to take forever. The neighbors are going to have my head on a plate. But at night, in fact, it's on my Facebook page if you want to go take a look at it. Seth Andrews, Facebook page. There's video. And so as you go by, there's this grid that looks like the cover of a hole, a gate, with hands coming out of it, a red hue, and then smoke that's carrying sort of the light all the way up. And it looks like the gate to hell. And so I told my friends, I said, I'm going to send this to my parents and tell them it's my new front door. We made like a skull wreath and put some stuff on it, got it on the front door. So all of our Halloween, ironically, we won't be here for Halloween. We've got someone staying here, but we won't be home because we're going to be in the Netherlands. For the first time, I'm going to miss Halloween. Actually, I'm going to be in Bruges on the night of Halloween. So I'm hoping that they have some kind of Halloween celebrations. Maybe they'll have costumes. Is there a festival, a parade? God, I hope there's something good there. But if you want to see our Halloween decorations, you can just check it out. Go to Seth Andrews' Facebook page or find me on Twitter. I think it's, what am I on Twitter? Seth Andrews TTA on Twitter. It's hard because there's a lot of Seth Andrews, so you can't just be Seth Andrews 1 or 5 or whatever. So I just add TTA for the Thinking Atheist. I'm not the Thinking Atheist, but it allows me to sort of use that so I can have, like an address that people can find. Yeah, that's right. I am the Satanic Panic this year. I am. Harrison said, what's the most common misconception about atheism that I encounter? I encounter a ton of them. Usually it's that we're all immoral people. And so that's why when people get to know me first, before they ask or they find out about my atheism, the next thing they say is, you're such a good guy. Because in their mind, atheists are like a caricature of atheism. You seem like a good moral person. How could you be an atheist? That's the big one. Which is another great excuse for us not leading with the argument, but leading with our humanity. Be a freaking human being. Go be kind to somebody. Be friendly to somebody. Shake their hand, tell a story, find out about their lives, let them find out about your life. Share a meal, be neighborly, and the other conversations are going to come. My favorite Halloween treat, oh God, my wife bought, I don't know how many bags. Now she bought them on the 7th of October, put them in a big bowl, the big serving bowl. For trick-or-treaters, and then she told me, don't eat these. They're for the kids. It's like 3 weeks to Halloween. There's Kit Kats in. I love cake. There's Snickers. There's Reese's. Whoppers. Malted milk. Oh, God. There's no way. She's a sadist. The woman's a sadist. So the idea that I'm supposed to not give in to this temptation is complete crap. Seth, would you be willing to tackle New Age woo? We've done several shows on them, and I think a few of them have woo in the title. Email me, Ella, Seth@thethinkingatheist.com, and I will send you directly the show link in at least one. I've got several of them in question. I think there's one we did called The Debunkers, where we actually brought in some people who this is what they do. They go and they get into this New Age woo, crystals, and hell, even chiropractic. Sorry, kind of falls into some of that. But send me an email, Seth@thethinkingatheist.com. And yes, I've already snuck several candies. There was another one I wanted to address. Becca says, I'm not comfortable calling myself an atheist, but I have serious problems with hypocrisy. My stepmom's a preacher. It's hard to talk to her about this. Becca, the first advice I give you, make your journey about you. And everything's a cost benefit. I honestly think that, people should know who you are and what you're about, but you're not in the business of changing the minds of the religious people around you. And I don't think that should be the motivation for you. And we always want to try to see people disabused of their faith, of these superstitious shackles. But it's a prison for you to live your life thinking, I have to shout it from the mountaintop in the direction of this theologian or religious parent or whoever, or I'm a coward. Your journey needs to be about you, which means that you can be who you are, and you can, take your journey, get educated about the things that interest you, and learn about the arguments, the debunking of the arguments, the the things that aren't solved yet, to make every day sort of a discovery and do it on your terms. Don't beat yourself up because you're not having like a sit down meeting with so and saying, this is who I am and this is what I think. And if I don't, I'm a hypocrite. A lot of times you're playing chess, it's a longer game. You're getting to a point in your life where you're able to stand on your own 2 feet and the consequences to you will be worth it. And they're not worth it at this measure. If you're not sure, just play it slow. Don't beat yourself up. But you're not here to your life isn't about them. Your life isn't supposed to please them. Your life's about you. So, be honest with yourself. Start there. And hopefully you'll come to a point where, if somebody asks, you can say, and if you're an agnostic, you're an atheist. Because if you don't know, you don't believe. You can say, I don't believe in gods. I don't need it. I don't hold to it. My life's wonderful, but thank you for asking. And, you can decide. But I wouldn't. I used to beat myself up because I wasn't louder in the direction of relative X or friend X. And the truth was, I decided, I'm just going to be me and do the things that are important to me without muting my voice. And then they can just sort of, if they happen to see it, if it happens to cross their paths, we'll figure that out. But it's still my life lived on my terms. It's not like I'm beating myself up because I'm not having atheism discussions with religious people in my inner circle. Thank you, Seth, for shining such a positive light on being an atheist. Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. You are not a monster because you don't believe Iron Age nonsense. And I'm glad you're living your life on your terms. Do I think sacrifice of your own blood is harmful? What the fuck are you talking about? What? Thank you for the donation. Virtual reality on PC is possible? Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Will I be asking fully deconverted onto my show? Well, it's very possible. I'm always good for good guests. And when you do as many shows as I do, we're up to 400 something. I'm always about talking to people who are in the movement and part of the discussions out there. Anyway, I guess we'll call it a day. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm not going to bother Henry. He's sleeping like a little baby down here in his little dog bed. But if he could speak, he would say to you that your life belongs to you. Live it on your terms. You're not here to keep other people comfortable. And that it's an amazing and wonderful time and thing to be alive despite the challenges we face. A Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation is not the end of the world. And you're going to see people who are losing their mind and losing their shit, and it's all nothing but negativity and blah, 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 blah. And I think, let's balance that out. We're not lying to ourselves when we stop and say, this too shall pass. We just continue to stay in the game, stay active. We continue to pound the drum. We continue to have the conversations. We continue to try to go out and see better ideas defeat bad ideas, better people defeat bad people. We continue to see the rise of non-belief in the United States and elsewhere. We continue to do what we do. And remember that for every bad person over here, I believe there are many, many more good people over here who really do want goodness to prevail. Let's not forget. Let's not allow ourselves to sort of get lost in the sadness of the season, but let's remind each other that there is a lot of good to be celebrated. There are a lot of things to be excited about. We are seeing court judgments. We're seeing crosses on taxpayer property that are coming down at court order. We're seeing people who are running from the church in droves, who don't need it, who don't want it, and even if they espouse some kind of specific religious faith, they've watered it down to the point where it's pretty much a secular life. This is a good thing. We are seeing in front of our eyes, the obsolescence of a kind of fundamentalist Christianity, and the few fundamentalists who remain are losing their minds, and the more they flip out, the more we have evidence that we are winning. The more Pat Robertson and Franklin Graham and Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and all those people lose their mind, the more it's a reminder that they are panicking. Why are they so panicked? If they represent a God that cannot be defeated, well, it's because that we, in that sense, are winning. There's stuff to be encouraged about, okay? Stuff to be excited about. There's stuff that can remind us of the good as we're navigating all the noise of the bad. And that's my encouragement to you. Don't let it get you down, okay? So I'll encourage you. You encourage me. I remind you. You remind me. We'll keep each other sort of saddled up and in the game. And we hope to see better ideas and a better world prevail. I'll see you soon.